we're back. We're back with the Tom and Ariana show.
We are back.
I'm Ariana.
You are?
That's Tom.
I'm Tom.
We're the Sylvesters.
In case people get us confused.
Just in case there's new viewers.
Because we look very much alike. We act very much alike. Not so much.
We are back this week with another episode of the Tom and Ariana show.
And what is the Tom and Ariana show?
Well, the Tom and Ariana show is where Tom and Ariana walk through some of the topics of the week, the posts of the week from our Family Entrepreneur Life community, some of the reflections or the lessons that we've had. And forgive me and bear with me, I'm trying to get this shared into our...
Oh, okay. Well, so yes, our show is to really give you guys the behind the scenes and kind of our view and perspective into what's going on in the entrepreneurial space. You know, there's a lot of themes that go on out there. There's a lot of stuff that goes on during different times of the year. Like, for example, we're getting towards the end of the year. So one of the things that comes up now is, okay, well, how do you close out this year strong? How do you start planning out for next year? And then, you know, what goes on in your business? And we like to share a lot of kind of what's going on in our businesses and, you know, the things that we've learned on our entrepreneurial journey. So one of the things that we do each week is we talk about our lessons learned. And this could be from either the prior week or from, you know, any time in really the last year. And then specifically today, what we're going to focus on is we're in the middle of actually planning out our 2018. So we're going to walk you guys through how that process is going so far and some of our wins and losses really coming out of 2017. And then, yeah, we've got some very interesting posts coming out of our Family Entrepreneur Life community of just different topics that are coming up in that space and with being entrepreneurs. So,
yay! It's posted. I'm back.
So with that said, before we jump in, if you guys are watching live, want to have you comment below and just let us know Team Live. And if you're more of the replay, kind of watch on your own schedule, leave us a comment below and let us know that you're Team Replay.
Yeah, Team Replay.
Team Replay.
We get a lot of Team Replays. We're family people. We know. We know how life is.
Exactly.
Or if you have to watch things with the captions on.
Yep. So, I know that was an interesting one this week. Started watching everything with captions on because our kids are so loud.
Yeah. Yep.
But so first thing we're looking at is lessons learned, reflections. So I want to hear you guys. What lessons have you learned this week or this month? And I'm going to throw it over to you. What has been kind of the biggest lesson and thing you want to focus on this week?
One of my reflections of the week, or maybe just something that I have been noticing and wanted to mention, is that it seems as though the norm is for every marketer out there, especially the really good ones, they want to play towards selling you the easy button.
The easy button. I wish you had an easy button.
Easy button. And I know that, you know, that's kind of just part of what marketing is at some times, and that's okay. But as customers, as entrepreneurs yourselves, I just want to make sure that you kind of have that gut check reaction, and you're thinking in your head, like, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. A lot of times people like to sell the dream and leave out the long journey that the dream took to achieve. Come
on, don't be such a Debbie Downer, right? I want to make money in the
I want to do it fast.
Yeah, I want to make 6 figures this month, right? And I can do it with $6 in my pocket if I only buy your $2,000 system.
Well, and I know we harp on this topic a lot, but just this week I feel like I've been noticing a lot of posts in that way, and you know, I think there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming out because it's the end of 2017 and everyone's ramping up for a big 2018, which is great. I just want you to have that little gut check reaction before you hit the buy button on something. Is this the right thing that I need right now in my business or in my life? And is this person the right person to give it to me?
Those are two excellent points.
There's not really anyone out there that's the only person selling something. Somebody else somewhere is selling that same thing. So, you know, just be aware, be a savvy customer, and, you know, do your research and kind of look into that before you...
Well, I was going to say, you hit on, I think, the two great things. The first question is this what you need now? Because a lot of times people buy, and they don't necessarily need it now, and so it wasn't the right choice. Yeah. And then the second one is critical. Like, is that the right person? Because they're not the only one teaching it. And aligning with somebody's style, with their values, and then even just how they're offering
personality.
it. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, what was yours?
Kind of on the same lines. So we're but we're getting to the end of the year, and if you saw our live video the other day, we were talking about don't go and buy like another planner or journal until you kind of figure out how you best work for planning and for actually getting your tasks tracked and getting them done. And so I just want to expand on that a little more to the fact that process comes first and then technology or tools come second.
Just realized that we didn't plug the mic in,
So a lot of times what ends up happening, and I had this a lot with corporate clients, is they would hire me in and they would say, you know what, we want to implement this tool or this technology. And what they often thought was that, well, if we just bought this next tool, it was going to actually allow us to do what we wanted to do. But far too often, the tool didn't fix it because they actually didn't have the right process in place. And so the tool just actually made it more complicated, and people ended up not using the tool, but the company paid for it. This happens in the entrepreneurial space as well. People go out and there's a sale on a tool, or someone else is talking about the next greatest tool and now I got to go buy it. The reality is you got to first figure out what is the process that works for you, like what are your requirements, how do you work best, and then from there you go and look at a tool or a technology that will then support and help you do that. Mm-hmm. So instead of thinking tool and then maybe I'll put a process in place for how to use the tool,
process first.
The big thing is get the process defined first and then pick the right tool or technology that will support and help you implement that process.
Yeah, I like it.
You like it?
So as we said, if you had any reflections from the week or lessons that you've learned, we would love to hear about them. So be sure to pop them in the comments below. And then we've got our weekly topic coming up next, which is kind of a different approach. We're going to actually share with you our progress report on our own annual goal planning.
What?
Well, I think it's important for people to see that it's a real thing. And there's real struggles and there's real wins, and I don't know, just see a little bit of the inside, what it looks like, especially because we have 3 businesses. So obviously ours is a little bit more complicated. But, what does that annual planning actually look like? What does that annual reflection look like?
I was going to say I like that because I was talking to someone, actually, Ashley from our group this morning, and one of the things she was saying was, it's been great watching you guys in your business because, one, you show the long haul and kind of all the behind the scenes where far too often you're just seeing someone like after they did all that and they don't talk about that. So as we always talk about, it's important for us to show you guys kind of what it looks like along the way because every entrepreneur faces this whether or not they actually share that.
Yeah. In the absence of time, we are not going to go through the entire process that we went through because it actually took us quite a few hours to go through each of we went through personal and each of the businesses. Well, it wasn't all day every day. It was, a couple hours on each day. But we decided that maybe one of the best things to share was the beginning of the exercise that we go through, which is looking over and reflecting on the past year and picking out some wins and picking out some losses. So we're going to share those with you. And these are for real. Like, these are Post-it notes that we actually wrote on the whiteboard behind us.
Yep.
So I'll go personal first. The order that we always go in is personal first. And then we'll go through each of the businesses and share some of those with you. So for our personal life, and I know this is going to resonate with a lot of you, we went through a lot of financial stresses throughout the year, like up and down financial stressors. One of them, Tom was at a consulting gig, and there was a couple times where the contract may or may not have been renewed, and so we were sitting waiting with a bated breath, like, okay, does this mean we have to go? Like, what do we have to do? What's gonna happen here? Are we gonna have to go gun ho in the businesses? Are we gonna lose our insurance? What are we gonna do? So it was just that. I know some of you know this feeling. Give me some emojis if that's true. Like, the waiting part was the worst part. I would have rather had something just happen rather than sitting and waiting around wondering. You get the wondering, and then you go down the dark routes of, oh my gosh, what could happen, and what are the, I guess maybe I think a little bit negatively sometimes because I have the worry and the planner in me. But it forced us to kind of do some of that prospect planning out into the future of, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, so we need to get basically get our shit together.
Well, and I was going to say, so, we talk about, challenges or losses, but what you often find is that through those challenges are actually where your biggest wins come from. So a lot of people could look at a situation like that and say, well, I don't have control, I'm at the whim of someone else. One of the things that we did was that we said, well, no, we are in control, and part of what we can do is realize where we're at, lay out our various options, and then continue talking about what's the best decision for us.
Yeah.
And that's what ultimately led to a win you'll hear about in a little bit for us.
Yeah.
But you said financial, and financial's a piece of it. I mean, it's always part of the equation. But I think the other challenge that we had, or the loss that we had, was just relationship challenges.
Yeah, that was on the list. Yeah,
I mean, we have
suffered.
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 kids, we have multiple businesses. I was still doing consulting, and with all that stuff going on, one of the big challenges that comes up is often not putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of times where we, weren't having the right conversations, or different stuff was going on because we weren't putting ourselves first, and that then, compounded. So overall, I would just say there was more stress than we needed to be.
I think that's life.
Well, but it is, but what I think we've learned, and we'll kind of get to when we get to the wins, is, how you actually have more control over that, and your responses to that are going to give you less stress.
Yeah. So next up is the real estate business, and one of our losses, or what do you want to call them?
They're challenges.
Challenges of
things
the year.
Things that didn't go as well as we would have hoped.
Things that didn't go well. Was that we actually had to fire our assistant manager in our real estate business earlier on in the year. So, I mean, in a way that was a good thing because we were not in alignment with that person and he was no longer the right employee to have in our business. But on the bad side, that meant that we had to then take back on all of those responsibilities that person was doing because we assessed at the time it wasn't the right time to go out and try to find somebody else. We wanted to bring it back in-house. We had some processes that we needed to work on and improve. So before we hire someone else, we wanted to go back and do what we should have done in the first place so that when we go to rehire somebody, hopefully it works out a little bit more, a little bit better for us.
Yeah, and this is a great example of, once again, you'll see that oftentimes, like, this was challenging when we did it, essentially, not to get into the whole thing, but this employee was really good at the start, and then he started having kind of signs of not really being the right fit or things falling off, and, really started being disrespectful, and then that was the point where it was like, okay, we're not going to have this, and we own this, we are the employer, so we get to make that decision.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, part of that was also on us as employers and not doing everything that we could do. So one of the things we were able to learn from that is some of the processes that we needed to improve and some of the things that, when we go to hire next time, we'll be doing better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Lessons learned. And then in the wine and liquor store, one of our things that didn't go well was we weren't on top of the numbers as much as we would prefer. Now, our business didn't fall apart, nothing bad happened, but it also didn't grow as much as we wanted it to. So I think that was one of our big losses for the year, is that, things went well, but they could have probably went better had we had a better handle on those.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and actually saying that, so it's not that they didn't grow as much as...
We grew, I think we could have done even more.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, that's the thing. So actually, we're on track to hit our targets for the year from a financial perspective, which is actually increasing from the prior year. And since we've had the store for 5 years, every single quarter, outside of the first quarter this year, we've increased our revenue. Mm-hmm. So that's an awesome trend to continue going over 5 years. And so we have increased and continued, but the challenge is when you don't know the inner workings of your numbers and necessarily where it all goes, you're not able to make smart decisions along the way, and you look back at the end of the year and you're like, oh man, we actually could have made these tweaks.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of why we tell people, you should be looking at these numbers every single month, because then you can make the changes early on.
Yeah. For the majority of the year, I felt like we had a great handle on them, but then there's still those little aspects where I feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants.
Well, and
which
with that,
is not ever something you want to be doing in your business.
Well, and with that said, though, I mean, so we've increased our profitability. It was like 212% from last year. Yeah. So the gross profit of what we're ultimately bringing in has gone up a ton.
Hey, you're skipping to the wins, man.
I am, you're right. Well, but to be honest, I think part of this too, and maybe a lesson learned for us, when we're sharing these things, the losses tend to lead to the wins.
They do.
So as you guys hear, we're going to be then saying how the losses have helped us actually get these wins.
Yep. All right. So for the online business, for the Tom and Ariana brand, one of the areas that I felt that didn't go well was when we pivoted to the Family Entrepreneur Life community back in the end of May, beginning of June. We kind of lost out on some of the momentum that we had because I think we weren't as clear as we could have been.
Yeah, well, all right, I'm going to skip ahead to the wins again.
Of course you are.
But so part of the pivoting was a big win.
It was huge.
Because when we talked about our personal stress early on, what we ended up finding out was that Ariana had a big kind of meltdown, and not just one, but we had a lot of different conversations.
Thanks for calling me out.
But
not just one.
But no, so this is important for people to hear.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not aligned with the things you're doing, it causes stress on your life. And one of the big pivots we made this year was shifting towards focusing on family-focused entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we did that was because Ariana, as we started kind of diving into why were we having some of this stress, she was like, I'm just not aligned to the brand that we have, like serial startups. I'm not a big fan of startups and all of that, but this is what I really like, the family stuff.
I didn't have the connection.
Yeah. So as you said, we might have lost some momentum when we made that change, but a win that came out of that was really getting clear on who we wanted to work with so that we could then gain that momentum back, because now once you're aligned with who you want to work with and what you're actually offering from a business, it's so much easier to then get in and execute on that business.
Yeah. And then I think the other area that didn't go as well as it could have was moving into a personal brand. We kind of had a little bit of confusion of our roles in the business and what that meant. And I think the reason for that was because before we weren't the face of our brand. We were a brand, and then we kind of did whatever we needed to do behind there. When we became the personal brand and we really started focusing in on the family focus, and we started being more us, hey, we are the brand, all of a sudden we were like, well, wait, I kind of do this and you kind of do that, and then we kind of do this together. And working, now that Tom's home, we're working and we're both kind of talking to each other over each other's shoulders. So I think part of that was when we started that personal brand, we missed out on clarifying our roles a little bit. So obviously now we're going back and adjusting that and making sure that we really have it figured out, who's responsible for what and what things do we need to do together.
Yeah, and that's a big lesson for anyone, is really just saying you always got to define, okay, what actions need to get done in our business or in our lives, and then who's going to take care of them. And if you don't clarify those, what you end up doing is well, I assume you're going to do the dishes. Well, I assume you're going to do the dishes.
Hell no.
It's the
dishwasher does the dishes.
Yeah, but it's the same thing in business. Identifying what needs to be done and who's going to do it then helps to just take a lot of the stress or losses out.
Yep.
All right, so now let's get into the wins.
Now that Tom's already shared half of them with you, let's get into the wins. For our personal life, obviously we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, as Tom has officially left his 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, well, and I want to jump into this. So I did earlier, right? But this is where you have control over your lives. And I don't want you guys to look at it and think that you don't have control. You have control over every decision you make. Now, our plan was always, by 35, I leave a job and we have this financial freedom and we're able to work for ourselves. Well, I'm 33, so it happened earlier.
A little ahead of schedule.
Yeah, it happened ahead of schedule, which is a great thing, and it's going to give us so much more momentum for the future, but it's also different than what the plan was.
Yep.
So realizing that it's a huge win, but we made this happen because we had the plan, we checked in on it, things went different than we thought, but we were in control of that.
We were able to take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely, and that's the way you guys got to be looking at things.
We had a foundation in place, and we had a plan that was in action. So even though the opportunity came earlier than expected, we were able to assess where we were. We were able to evaluate our current situation and say, hey, we think we can make this work now. Let's jump on it and let's try to do it. But we also have backup plans, as everybody should.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so another big win for the year, so happy for this one, is we just cut our daycare bill in half.
Woohoo!
So
What happens when your child goes to kindergarten?
I was gonna say, so what were we paying a year?
Like $24,000.
$24,000 a year in daycare.
Give us some emojis if you're a parent with kids in daycare and you know the pain.
I was gonna say that's a tough pill to swallow, but we ended up making the decision a while ago to do that, and that gave us the time we needed to be able to focus on our business.
Mainly because I am not a stay-at-home mom or a work-from-home mom.
And to be honest, I mean, it is tough to focus and get work done when you have kids around. I mean, if you're working in a corporate job or a traditional job, you don't have your kids there all day, and you can focus more. If you suddenly transition to working at home and now your kids are there, I'll tell you, it's a big change, right?
And this is my point to give mad props to all the homeschooling moms we have in the group, because I know there's quite a few of you. No way I would ever be able to do that.
All right, so up next we got our real estate business.
Yes.
So
big win there. I'm excited. I mean, I don't know who's more excited. You're probably more excited. But we moved our real estate business over to Profit First.
Yeah, so the prior year we had our coaching business on Profit First as we tried it out. Worked out with great success. And then through a lot of nudging.
He poked me a lot.
Yeah, we said, this is working really well in one business. Let's shift it over to the others. But one of the things for anyone that's looking to do Profit First is you've got to take the basic concepts and adjust it for your business. So we said, well, let's move our real estate business over, and then next year we're going to move our wine and liquor store over. But as we did that with our real estate, we ended up having different accounts and had to change how we move things based on when cash came in, how we were paying things out.
It's a little bit of a mess in the transition, but yep. we are figuring it out. We kind of put all the details in place that need to be there, and we're now walking through the processes to say, is this how we should be doing it, or is there a better way that will make it easier on us and also on all of the crazy back-end technology?
Another big win, we actually sold a property, or was selling a property next week.
So
we keep most of the properties that we have, and we prefer the cash flow and building wealth by having tenants paid on our mortgage.
But when an opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you grab it and run.
Yep, and what's beautiful with that, and this is what's nice about real estate, if you guys are ever looking to get into it, you can make money a lot of ways. So like I said, we end up making a lot of our money from cash flow and building wealth through mortgage pay down. But there's times where we can sell a property and actually make money on selling the property. So you have different options, and you're not stuck into one way to do that.
Mm-hmm. But go and do the research and find people who know what they're doing first, because it is definitely a deep, dark hole that you can get yourself down trying to do real estate without going out and getting the knowledge and having the know-how first.
Absolutely.
Wine and liquor store. We have outsourced almost everything to our purchasing manager, and it has been the best year out of our 5 years so far at the store.
Yep.
Not only has, Tom mentioned this earlier, not only is it our most profitable year, he has made it more profitable in the way that he's ordering our inventory, but we also have more inventory in our store than we've ever had in the history of the store.
Yep.
So that is a huge win for us. And we're going into our busiest season of the year.
Well,
normally we don't have our highest inventory until the busiest season when he puts those orders in and starts prepping. Now we're actually past what we normally have ever been before.
Well, I was going to say, and just want to call out, I don't know how many people are in retail, but so having a lot of inventory isn't necessarily a good thing, but what we're doing is this is our busiest selling time. I mean, we make the majority of our money actually at the end of the year. So being able to be better prepared, Homer, wow, I called it out. But so being able to be better prepared going into the end of the year is really what we're looking for. And then as you said, so we've got more products, we're more profitable. And a big thing that we did this year too, we talked about it I think on a previous show, we actually gave one of our employees profit sharing. So as he's helping to increase profit, we want to be able to give that back and reward him. So yeah, it's been a great year overall for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think with most retail, not having a lot of inventory is a good thing because you want it to be moving in and out. But for us, the way that he has ordered, having a larger inventory now allows him to go out and get bigger and better discounts on the items that he's bringing in.
And that's the balance.
There's a strategy behind.
Well, I was going to say, that's the balance that you always got to do, is to say how do we do ordering to maximize profit, and then also to make sure that cash flow and everything else is managed too. Yeah.
So I think that was our, what else? Oh, we forgot. We paid off our first bank loan. Woohoo! So obviously, if some of you know our story, we started the wine and liquor store about 5 years ago. But if you are trying to start a business and you don't have a lot of capital, going and getting a business loan from a bank is still a practical solution as long as you have a validated business idea that's going to allow you to pay that bank loan off. So as we didn't know any, big investors at the time, and we were kind of just going into this from scratch, we went and got a bank loan from a bank. Tom made a whole business plan and everything. So we actually paid that off, and we've got one other smaller bank loan that we use for inventory that will be paid off next year. So this is huge, and we are super excited about it.
Absolutely.
And then our last business is the Tom and Ariana Brand. So some of the wins, we have quite a few wins in there.
A lot of wins.
Tom already talked about one of them was pivoting over to the family space, which was huge for us. We found our zone of genius. Obviously, if you've been around our group for any length of time, on our email list or on our page, you know that we are huge, huge planners. So that's our zone of genius. We plan things, lots of things. We launched Lifestyle Builders, which has been amazing so far. We're loving the first group of members that we have in our Lifestyle Builders mentorship program. And we had this year our first speaking gig live in front of
together speaking
gig in front of a small live event. And Tom was featured on the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast, EO Fire, which all of these things are kind of equaling to one word, which is momentum. And that was our biggest win of this year, was getting some huge momentum in this business.
Yeah, and I mean, so actually that event that we were at, one of the speakers, or the person that put it on, Jill Stanton, she actually talked about, she had a quote that's spot on, and she said, entrepreneurs thrive on momentum. And that's really the case. And you guys have probably experienced this too yourselves, where, when you seem to get that one win, and then that one win snowballs into a second win and a third win, and you just get excited and things keep going. But if you get into that funk where it's like, well, this thing happened and this thing happened, and then that could spiral out of control into like a loss. So a big part of this is realizing that, one, you have the control over those losses, but you want to consistently turn them into the small wins, which will then get into the bigger wins and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I see Kimberly's watching. She said, love EO Fire. Woo woo!
Yeah, John,
JLD.
I was gonna say, John is great. We actually met him in person at that event that we were at, so we spent some time with him. So it's cool doing the podcast and then being able to meet him in person, talk to him. You spent some time with Kate.
Yeah, I love Kate. Kate's awesome.
Yeah,
she's the brains behind the biz.
Yeah, well, and I love Kate because Kate loves Scrum and all the process stuff. And so she got to our presentation. We actually had a Scrum board up, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's great!"
Yeah. And then so, as we said earlier, if you've got wins or losses or a topic that you'd love to hear us talk about, we would love to see you post them up below. And then our post of the week, we normally pick a post or a win or some interesting debate or topic from our Facebook community. We had a couple this week.
Yeah, we did.
So if you're watching and you saw one that caught your eye, make sure to post up, and we'll talk about that one next week. But first, we had Christy ask about alignment assessments for bringing on ideal clients, which I thought was a very interesting topic and very relevant for everyone.
Well, so Christy's actually a member of our Lifestyle Builders community, and we've had several conversations with her, and her post was actually really talking about, how do I make sure that I'm bringing on the right clients? And so just a quick background on Christy. She's a CPA, and so she works with a lot of tax clients. And so she has a crazy time of year, basically the first half of the year. And, she's had some very long weeks and challenging times in the past because clients aren't giving the information. They're not aligning with her. And so she brought up this concept of really saying, I want to put some sort of filtering and onboarding process so I make sure that the right people and the right clients come in and the wrong ones don't. Mm-hmm. So that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, so we had group members throwing out different tools because she wanted to know how she would be able to do some sort of assessment like that. So we had people contributing different tool options or different process options, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and I think the biggest part of that, and a lot of what the comments were, was saying basically, get clear on who you want to work with and who you don't, and then design that alignment process to really just, weed out the people you don't want to work with. Mm-hmm. And then I think another key important part of this was she was asking what tools should she use, and going back to my lesson at the beginning of this is start with the process, right? So get clear on who you want to work with, who you don't, what questions or filtering you can do, and then use the simplest process possible, simplest tool. And then once you get that working, then you can maybe automate it or put it into something cooler.
Yeah, something cooler.
Something cooler. Well, I think I gave her a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are not cool.
Yeah, of course. Then we had a great win in the group that I wanted to share. At some point in the middle of the week, Sherry Martinez posted up she was having some kind of like techie glitch issue with her WordPress site for a client that she was working on. And we had not one, but 2 members jump in to offer their help and support. So I wanted to just say a thank you to Bernadine and to Tyson for jumping in and helping another member in need. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and then I think the final thing that we had this week, which is our ever-popular team dress
versus team sweatpants.
Yeah, and you guys can't see right now, she actually does have sweatpants on down below. The way
sweatpants on.
The way that it always is.
And my shirt says messy bun and getting it done.
And I'll tell you, I was very disappointed in all the members of our community because, like, I don't know, 90% were like team sweatpants this time.
Yep.
In the past, it's been more 50-50. I think there was one
landslide.
time where I almost won.
There is not.
There was one time where I was close.
Not.
But I mean, it's not even close this time. So, very disappointed in you guys. We need more team dressed up representing.
Great job. Everyone keep up the sweatpants.
But on a serious note, I want to tell you guys why I'm so team dressed up. And then you can tell why you're team sweatpants.
Yep.
So, it's important to figure out what works for you in helping you be focused and productive. And for me, I spent 10 years working a traditional job in the corporate environment, and part of what that's kind of conditioned me for is that when I put on a certain set of clothes, I get into a certain mindset. So as I transition from corporate to an entrepreneur, like if I have sweatpants or if I have shorts on, I'm not going to be productive. I'm going to be like laying on the couch. So for me, part of putting on like nicer clothes help me get in the mindset of working. And I do the same thing with like music. There's certain music I use for work, certain music I use for like...
Who in the community remembers what Tom's favorite work music is?
We'll see if
Bonus
they do.
points if you post it up below.
But like when I work out, I listen to a very different set of music. When I'm cleaning, Ariana knows because that certain set of music...
I walk in the door and I know.
But so part of it, and just want to make sure that you guys understand the meaning behind this, is figure out what works for you. And then, even if someone else gives you crap, don't worry about it, but use what works for you.
You guys can still keep giving them crap. It's totally
so why do you like sweatpants? Why is that so good for you?
Well, obviously part of it is because that is how I spent a large majority of my life. I was an athlete growing up. I was huge into athletics, so I always wore what was the most convenient. And honestly, there were days, the only reason I dressed up at school was because as an athlete in school, when you had away games, you were supposed to dress up because you were representing your school when you went to the other schools you were competing at.
Yep.
So other than that, I probably would have gotten by my entire school career between jeans and sweatpants. And then when we got into college, I was an athlete in college. I played soccer and I ran track for a year. So we got paid for sweatpants, like sweatsuit outfits. And they are some of the most comfortable clothes that I have ever owned. I still have them, even though I'm 11 years out of college, right? 11? Yeah.
Sure.
2006, 2017, 11. Yeah. But that's what I lived in, was sweatpants. And for me, it's not so much about getting dressed to put me in the productive mindset. For me, it's how I wake up and how I feel. That is what either puts me in the productive mindset or doesn't. So regardless of what I have on, it's kind of like the way I start the day is the way the day is going to go. I can attempt to adjust it a little bit based on if I have a ton to do, putting myself into the mode of I have to be productive today versus maybe I don't have to be as productive and I can take a break for lunch or something. But if I'm going to be productive, I would rather do it comfortably.
Yeah.
And I am always cold and I hate wearing uncomfortable clothes. Like, hate it. And I don't know. I guess maybe I just don't own that many comfortable, dressy clothes. But if I'm going to put sweatpants on, and it cuts down on laundry. I'm being green.
There you go.
Sure. So, what we really would love is to hear why you prefer Team Get Dressed or Team Comfy Sweatpants. And obviously there's different aspects to that. Some of us talked about the entrepreneur mullet where you wear sweatpants on the bottom, but you dress up on the top because you have video calls.
Yep.
High five. Give me some emojis for my entrepreneur mullet.
And then if you're
people.
like, Ariana, you do that, but then you go to leave the house and you're like, oh crap, I have sweatpants on.
Maybe I should put on some jeans. All right, I think
so
that's all we got for this week.
Yeah, but so going back to the initial point, so there's a lot of offers coming out this time of year. There's a lot of people that are talking about goal planning, and as you guys know, we are big fans of goal planning. But we want to offer you guys a free alternative or a free stepping stone if you're thinking about purchasing a program or anything about goal planning.
And it's the process. There's no tool.
Yeah, so we're giving you the process. It's called Plan with Purpose, and this is the process that we go through. It's the process that we teach people on, and we want to give you guys a free video series that's actually going to walk through each step, 7 days, 7 steps, to guide you through getting clear on what you want out of life, putting a roadmap together, and then getting everything set up so that you can close out 17 and then start 2018 with a bang. So we'll leave a link down below and let you guys know how you can get in on that.
Put it in there right now.
Okay, anything else for this week?
No, I think we have covered everything.
Yeah. And
happy Friday.
I was going to say
We hope you guys have an awesome weekend.
Yep, and we will catch you next week. Same time, same place.
Oh, and we did, if you didn't read the caption on the video, there is a new item on the shelves behind us, so points to whoever finds him or it.
Him, giving secrets away.
Bye!